The Margin Call is a unique movie based on the real-life events of the 2008 crisis. But the brilliance of the film is that the director, J.C. Chandor, didn't just come up with the story of the movie on his own. He himself comes from a family with deep roots in finance and spent a lot of time talking to the people who were actually involved in the crisis. He interviewed former bankers, traders, and analysts who sat in the same rooms where the decisions were made. He listened to their stories and then took those fragments of truth and used them to create a single, fictional bank with its own characters. That's why Margin Call feels so raw and authentic. It's fiction, but the kind of fiction where you can almost point at the screen and say, "I know what bank did that," or "I know a guy just like that." This movie feels so real because the director tried to show the actual culture of Wall Street before 2008. Not only that, but the clothing of the junior analyst and seniors in the hierarchy is also perfectly represented in the movie. There's a whole article on how Margin Call's clothing perfectly fits the character and their position in the bank. Overall, it's a story pieced together from real events that took place inside Wall Street's biggest banks during the crisis. No single bank experienced everything exactly as the movie shows, but every single character and every tense scene in Margin Call mirrors something that really happened behind the closed doors of those banks. Each character of the movie represents a different kind of person who was caught in the middle of the storm. Take the character of Eric Dale, the risk manager who's fired in the movie's opening scene. He's the first one to discover the huge, hidden problem in the firm's numbers. Eric isn't just one man. He's a blend of many real-life quants and engineers at several banks. These were brilliant people, often outsiders to the world of high finance, who had the skills to spot the flaws in the complex computer models. At a bank like JP Morgan, for instance, a team of analysts, including people with engineering backgrounds, started raising early warnings about how risky mortgage-backed securities were. They saw the house of cards for what it was. Eric Dale represents all of these smart, under-the-radar people who saw the disaster ahead but whose warnings were simply ignored by the powerful leaders at the top. Then there's Peter Sullivan, the young analyst who gets a file from Eric and spends the night finishing his work. Peter represents all the junior employees working through the night, running numbers and models. At places like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, junior analysts and traders were often the first ones to notice how bad the numbers really were. Sam Rogers, played by Kevin Spacey, feels like he's drawn from the painful experiences of many seasoned mid-level managers. Sam is the head of the trading floor. He represents the managers who, even though they felt something was terribly wrong, couldn't fight the powerful system. They hated the decisions being made at the top, but had no real power to stop them. Many insiders later admitted in interviews that they felt the same mix of guilt, loyalty, and helplessness as the world crumbled around them. And then there's John Told, the CEO, played with a chilling calm by Jeremy Irons. Told is clearly based on Richard Fuld, the infamous CEO of Lehman Brothers. The name is even a play on it. Fuld becomes Told. But Told isn't just one man. He borrows traits from other powerful Wall Street bosses, like Goldman's CEO, who famously justified his tough decisions by saying he was doing God's work. Told isn't a person, he's an idea. He represents the mindset of every leader who chose profits over people and short-term survival over long-term ethics. The people below him, like Sam Rogers, only saw parts of the picture. And Told, at the top, was being fed a heavily curated version of it all. No one in that room had the full, unbiased picture. But Told used his years of experience and the fragmented information to go for the fire sale. This fragmented information problem wasn't just confined to Wall Street boardrooms in 2008. It's exactly what we face today when we try to understand complex news and government policies. And we're not Told or Told's version of a young child or a golden retriever. We are normal people. And even though every fact is a Google search away, we're drowning in biased information overload, making it impossible to see the real truth. That's where Ground News comes in. It's a platform that lets you see how the same story is covered across the political spectrum. You'll see where outlets lean, what they emphasize, and most importantly, what they leave out. For example, I was just reading about Trump and the US national debt. Right-leaning outlets often highlight the positives and downplay the risks, while left-leaning outlets focus heavily on criticism and ignore the small progress that's been made. With Ground News, you can see both sides at once, plus the bias score that shows you exactly how the story is being covered across the spectrum. This matters because when you're planning for your financial goals, you need clear and balanced information. Whether it's the debt, the housing market, or new government policies, Ground News helps you cut through the noise and get the full 360-degree view. I've put my affiliate link in the description. If you sign up through it, you'll get a 40% discount. You'll also be supporting the channel while making sure you read the news the way it should be read, with balance and transparency. Speaking of complex decisions, let's get back to the climax of margin call, the fire sale. This is when Told's firm decided to dump all of its toxic mortgage securities in a single day, no matter the cost. The traders were ordered to sell everything at any price, even if it hurts their clients and destroys their reputation. The only goal was survival. In the film, this all happens in one single trading day. But here's the most important truth. Before the 2008 crisis, the real-life fire sales didn't happen this way. They were slower, quieter, and spread out over weeks or even months. Banks didn't want anyone to know they were panicking. They knew that if the market smelled blood, they would be ruined. The fire sale in the movie is the combination of fire sales that happened at various banks over a long period of time. The fire sale meant selling everything at deep discounts, and there were 4 banks where fire sales happened in one or another form. Goldman's is the clearest example of a fire sale. While other banks were still blind, Goldman's leadership, particularly their CFO, saw the warning signs in 2007. They didn't just slowly sell their toxic mortgage-backed securities, they executed a brilliant and controversial 2-part strategy. First, they started quietly offloading their own massive exposure onto whatever willing buyers they could find, often at discounted prices. They knew taking a small loss now was better than a catastrophic loss later. Second, and most famously, they made a cold-blooded decision. They began massively shorting the housing market. This meant they started betting against the very same type of toxic assets they were selling. In essence, they were profiting from the collapse they saw coming. While their clients were buying the toxic assets Goldman was selling, Goldman itself was betting those assets would become worthless. It worked. Because their rivals were wiped out, Goldman not only survived, but it also profited to the tune of $4 billion from its short positions. In the summer of 2007, Bear Stearns faced the first big test of the coming crisis, and they tried to do a fire sale. The bank had 2 massive hedge funds stuffed with mortgage-backed securities, and when those funds collapsed in June, Bear scrambled to liquidate the assets. But the market had already grown suspicious. Buyers weren't interested in taking on toxic bonds, and the few offers that came in were at rock-bottom prices. Bear barely limped through the rest of the year, but the damage was done. By March 2008, the firm had collapsed completely, setting off one of the first major shocks of the financial meltdown. Lehman Brothers was the most infamous failure of the crisis. By September 2008, the firm was sitting on $85 billion worth of toxic mortgage assets. Lehman decided to do the margin call-style fire sale over one frantic weekend. They tried to sell huge portions of their portfolio before markets opened on Monday. They courted buyers like Barclays and Bank of America, hoping someone would step in. But one by one, the deals fell apart. No one wanted to be left holding that much risk. When the weekend ended without a buyer, Lehman had no choice left. By Monday morning, Lehman declared bankruptcy. If there's one bank that truly carried out something close to the margin call's fire sale, it was Merrill Lynch. In July 2008, Merrill announced that it sold $30 billion worth of collateralized debt obligations to Lone Star funds. But the shocking detail was the price. Merrill offloaded the assets for just 22 cents on the dollar, essentially dumping billions in toxic securities at a massive loss. If you look more into the details of Merrill's fire sale, you will know the real deal was closed at 5 cents on the dollar. It was a desperate move, but also a textbook example of what a fire sale looks like in the real world. Unload everything at any price just to buy a little more time to survive. So, the fire sale and margin call is not literally true. No bank dumped everything in a single day. But the movie captures the emotional truth of what it was like. The sense of urgency, the betrayal of clients, the fear of complete ruin, and the willingness to destroy long-term trust for short-term survival all really happened. J.C. Chandor compressed months of chaos into a single day to make us feel what it was like inside those rooms. In doing so, he created one of the most accurate and powerful dramatizations of the financial crisis ever put on screen. The genius of Margin Call is that it never tells you which bank's story you're watching, because the answer is all of them. The movie includes everyone but mentions no one. All of this chaos was blended into one gripping and unforgettable story that tells the truth in a way that news headlines and spreadsheets never could.